the Philippines and maybe some lies about the Philippines. You're probably saying, who lies about the Philippines? I have no idea. I haven't visited the Philippines yet, so I can't verify what's true or not. But what we can is react to a video by Brian the Lion. We're huge fans of him on his channel. So, Brian, if you're ever watching this video, keep up the great work, man. I always appreciate your perspective on things, and I think you have a good way of wording things that allows us foreigners, or I guess Americans, really understand what you're trying to say without jumping to conclusions. So appreciate that. We love Brian the Lion. So we're gonna be reacting to three most disgusting lies about the Philippines. Now, I haven't seen this video, so I don't know if it's more than three, but we'll always link the original video down in the description below. And if you like my commentary and my insight and conversations we have here on this channel, consider dropping a like or subscribing. Probably a like because it's a free way to support me and lets the YouTube gods know I'm doing something right. Anyway, let's get into it now. Why is
Let
it
me
not
ask you
starting?
something. When someone mentions the Philippines, what pops into your mind? Be honest.
Friendly people, great food, a lot of rain, or really humid. Do we want? Let's do five. So, awesome people, friendly people, good food, really hot and humid rain. Um, Terrible traffic, which, but to be fair, terrible traffic is all over the world. Um, and what else? Oh, the I forgot what the tradition's called, but where you give gifts whenever you come back from somewhere, or you go somewhere. I forgot what it's called, but I'm learning. And those are the five things I think about in the Philippines.
Is it some overfiltered beach on Instagram, a fried pig with an apple shoved in its mouth, or just Manny Pacquiao uppercutting poverty in the jaw? Because depending on who you ask, or better yet, where they've been, you're going to get a wildly different answer. You live in Davao, you might think you're in some tropical Switzerland where everything works, people smile, and the air doesn't actively try to kill you. You live in Manila, suddenly it's Gotham City without Batman. Just traffic, noise, and a strange smell you can't quite locate. Could be durian.
I honestly, can I say this? As someone who lives in Seattle, which we need to react to more Seattle videos. Let me know in the comments actually if you guys want me to react to some Seattle stuff, so you can get my insights on things. But I always feel like I'm not gonna say anything new. But we can you let me know in the comments what you think. When people say like Gotham City, like Gotham is technically supposed to be like a crime filled place. I don't get that feeling from Manila, but I've never been there. But based on the perception, based on the the reactions that we have for other videos, I don't really get that feeling. Um, Especially when you see Seattle and how bad it is over here. So I don't know.
Could be something far less poetic. So here's the uncomfortable truth. The way we see the Philippines, or any country for that matter, is a dirty little mirror of our own experience. If you had a great time, amazing people, solid connections, sunsets that made you feel things, you'll defend this place like your life depends on it. If your time sucked, maybe you got scammed, maybe your ex ran off with your best friend and your motorbike, you'll call it a disaster zone and start every sentence with, "Don't go to the Philippines unless you want to." And now
That's that's actually a good point. I think that's definitely what influences a lot of obviously it's your own experience is gonna make it, but I think I think that's part of being tourists, right? Is learning to maybe if you're traveling and you're like a tourist, right? You have to be able to separate what happened that one time from the whole country.
now we're knee deep in stereotypes,
Yeah.
broad, sloppy brushstrokes people use to color in an entire nation, like calling all Americans fat, all Italians mobsters, or all Australians drunk spiders in human form.
I will say this though, as an American, a lot of us are fat. Italians are not mobsters, but we never know. Just kidding.
None of it's true. Except for maybe the Australians. I've seen some things. So
Really?
today, let's tear into three of the most disgusting, overcooked, soggy lies people believe about the Philippines. And no, this isn't based on my personal experiences because I'm not here to sell you my life story. I'm not that interesting. This is research, baby. Cold, hard, academic style Googling. The kind you do in your underwear
Mm.
at 3 a.m. when you're supposed to be doing taxes. Let's start with the first lie.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna start with the first line, but can I say this, Brian? If you ever watch this video, or if you guys in my audience watch Brian, yeah, maybe we need to collab or something. But or when I go, I would definitely love to meet Ryan. Can I say this? I think there's a we'll get back to the video. I'm sorry, but I need to put this rant in here because I think it's really important. There's this like hate right now, or just I guess around any expat. Is that the word? Or anybody, yeah, an expat that hypes up and defends the country that they're living in, right? There's kind of like this negative view on those people because they're like, oh, they only will ever say things that are positive, or they're always at the end of the day going to defend the country. But it's like, in fairness, right? Though, in fairness, and again, I'm an outsider on this. I think that makes sense. You do want them to defend the country because it's they're the ones living there. They have the real experience. They understand what it means to actually be there. So if they're not there, not saying they have to defend it, but I think that if they're going to do that country justice, I think it's only fair that when they have the opportunity to speak up, they do it. And I think that's why Brian the Lion is a great example of he's just sharing what he researches, what he knows, and what he experiences, right? He does a good job of he says, "You know what? I am representing me, and then I'll represent the Philippines and what I know." And it's doesn't and it's like I think that's fair and valid. That's all I guess. I guess this whole rant is people need to stop being so critical on these expat guys who are doing a good job of um representing the countries that they're in.
That the Philippines
Because there's actual bad examples and those guys don't get enough shit. So like they give shit to the good guys, but not the bad ones, if that makes sense.
is dangerous. Oh, yeah. Cue the dramatic music and slow mo CCTV footage. You mention the word Philippines to some folks, and their eyes widen like you just said. North Korea, but with karaoke.
What?
People love to say it's sketchy here. Like you'll get mugged by a man in flip flops holding a mango, or kidnapped by a jeepney driver who just really wants a conversation. Here's the thing there is crime here. Just like there's crime in Paris, New York, London, and the parking lot of any Walmart after 11 p.m.
Hey, if you know, you know. Hey, look, when I say okay, another thing, people don't take me serious when I say America's a battle royale. If you don't know what a battle royale, it's like the Hunger Games, right? The high you can achieve so much, you become the peak of the world, but you could also be the low of the low, right? Because everyone's competing. And one of the battlegrounds is a parking lot in Walmart. So if you know, you know, or a Waffle House. If you ever come to the United States, make sure to check out a Waffle House and you'll really understand what we're talking about.
You go looking for trouble, guess what? You're gonna find it.
Of
You
course.
walk down a dark alley drunk and screaming YOLO while waving around a new iPhone like it's a sparkler on the 4th of July. Yeah, bad things might happen. But you live in a decent neighborhood, mind your own business, treat people with respect, and maybe don't act like a walking ATM. Most Filipinos will treat you better than your own relatives back home. They'll offer you food, directions, and if you're lucky, unsolicited love advice that somehow stings a little too much. You're too picky, that's why you're alone.
Oh, I hate that advice, but it's usually true. Again, I have most of my friends historically throughout my life have best friends, by the way, have been Filipino or African American. But I will say this the Filipinos have always said that it's not real, like crime is everywhere, but it's mostly about are you inviting it? That's verbatim kind of what I've been told is are you inviting the crime? If you don't invite it, it will not come in most cases. So what does that mean? Am I throwing money around like crazy, carrying like showing off a big wad of cash? What do you think is gonna happen? But in fairness, that's gonna happen anywhere. So it's like the difference is like the mentality of in America, people like flaunt things and shit like that, but at the same time, it's like a weird, I don't know, it's like crime does happen, but sometimes it doesn't. Whereas like in other countries, you shouldn't invite the crime to you. You shouldn't do things that invite crime. I don't know if that makes sense.
Ouch, Ate. That one hit deep. Second lie, that the Philippines is dirty, and not in the good way. People say the streets are a mess, the rivers are clogged, and Manila Bay looks like it's been through a divorce. But here's where nuance comes in. And nuance, by the way, is a word most of the people who push these lies can't even spell.
True.
Yes, some parts are dirty. So are some parts of LA. I've stepped over more needles in San Francisco than in a Filipino hospital. You think Bangkok smells like roses? Ever been to a train station in India? Hell. I've been to places in Europe where the air tastes like expired cheese and bad decisions.
True. Look, I'm just gonna say this. I'm tired of maybe look, I haven't been to the Philippines, so I wouldn't know. Maybe I'll be as passionate defending it once I leave, which I probably will, just because I think the Philippines is where like I fit the vibe, right? But I will say this. I'm tired of these people. Like I'm glad Brian brought this up. I'm tired of these people in America saying like, "Oh, this country smells," or like, "This Asian market smells." So, who cares? One, you don't know what it's from. Neither do I. So why would I care? But two, it's like it only smells because it's different, right? There's different things going on. So, for example, there's an Asian market where close to where I live. It does smell a little bit. Sure, it smells right. I'm not gonna say it's good or bad, but it does have a smell. But it's also because they're making fresh duck when they're preparing it. Like I'm talking about, like take the duck, actually do the thing, and then cook it and everything. They do the whole process there. So what do you think it's gonna smell like? Roses? No. Like there's a process to life. There's a smell to life. There's a smell to cultures. I just think like if you can't expect the whole world to smell the same. And even then, there's countries who have really bad air pollution. So sometimes it's not even the culture, it's just the pollution. So there's so many different things to say. And then also another thing that really gets on my nerves is like calling countries, obviously, like he says, dirty, but it's like, man, there's so many worse countries that are just filthy. But the way I see it is, it's not really about it being filthy. It's a matter of was it really nice and then did it become filthy, right? Because there's cultures who just don't care. There's cultures that literally they make goods, like they manufacture their things and then they just throw it outside, right? Not saying it's good or bad, not here to judge. But if the country's always been like that, it's always going to be like that until they change it. But if you take something like say for example Paris or France, again, I've never been, but when you look at what's happened to it over the years, everybody says it's gone to shit. What stands out to me, it's not whether the place was dirty. It's a matter of it became really nasty, dirty, downhill, a shithole, right? It's not it's not what it is. It's the journey that matters to me. I hope that makes sense.
But guess what? You get out of the big cities, you head into the provinces, and suddenly you're living inside a desktop wallpaper. Water so clear you can see your future.
Dang.
Mountains that look like they were photoshopped by God. And rice terraces that make you forget your ex's name. For a minute, anyway. And even in Manila, things are changing.
Which I'm glad. Which I know this is a side note. I just want to say I understand like the donations and shit like this. Anytime there's a QR code, I would never use it just because of scamming. Just want to put that out there.
Places like BGC, you'd swear you were in Singapore if not for the occasional rooster just casually strolling past a Starbucks. There's effort, there's growth, and most importantly, there's a kind of gritty charm,
Hmm.
like a boxer with a crooked nose who still gets the girl.
Yeah, like
But the most
Rocky.
laughable, utterly insane, nose crinkling lie that the Philippines is poor. And I know what you're thinking. How's that a lie? Isn't it a developing country? Sure. But here's where people confuse wealth with numbers in a bank account.
Yep.
Some of the happiest, most generous people I've ever met had 2 coins to rub together and still offered me one. Meanwhile, back in the rich countries, people hoard paper towels like it's the end of days. Poverty here doesn't mean laziness. It doesn't mean stupidity. It means a system that's still catching up to a population full of hustle, heart, and hustle. Yeah, I said hustle twice. It deserves it. Every tricycle driver has a side gig. Every sorry store auntie is a full-time psychologist. Everyone's working, pushing, grinding, and still finds time to sing karaoke at maximum volume at 2 a.m. because life is for living.
And again, everyone knows the Filipinos are some of the most hardest working people on the planet. Okay. Um, and this is a video we learned this. We have a video on the channel where we learned that also the Philippines has this unique culture of where people go, their high talent, their skill, and I forget what is it. It's like basically they're very talented people leave the Philippines, but then they eventually come back. But the issue is that they leave, right? Because they want to bring the bounties, they want to bring their gifts back to the Philippines. But you got to understand, people still got to leave and actually collect the things that they want to do. So I also learned that just because it seems like the country's developing, it's like it how do I say, like, it's going to take time for all that talent around the world to finally catch up and come back, if that makes sense. So like it's a very much a cultural thing. Now it'd be different if like some other countries where all the talent and all the all the talent and all the hard workers just left. It never came back and didn't want anything to do with it, right? That would be different. But people will love the Filipinos who leave the Philippines, eventually come back and contribute back. So it's like there's that. But also I think this is a hard one to talk, not a hard one to talk about, but there's so much to it. So like um let's say the idea of poor. The issue with America is like we getting money in America is easy, but making it work for you is hard. So for example, if I can go to the Philippines and buy a car, say for example, that gets you from point A to point B, doesn't matter how crazy fancy it is, but it gets me to point A to point B and it costs me $1,000 or $2,000. But in America, a car to get me from point A to point B cost me 10, 15. Am I really richer or am I getting scammed? You see what I'm saying? Like something costing less does not mean that it's necessarily worse. If anything, I think it's better to have a life that's a little bit more achievable with less. Now, I understand pay in the Philippines a little bit different. It's a little bit lower. But um I know that's kind of tricky, but at the same time it's like if you can regardless of where you are in the world, regardless of how much you have, if you can be happy and content with what you got or what you're able to get, that will always be having more. Because the issue is when you have more, you'll always need more and more and more. So, for example, here's in America, I got a college degree. To get a college degree, I took on college debt. So now I have debt. In order for me to pay off that debt, I have to buy a car. Bought a car. Now I have a car debt and college debt. I use that car to get a job. That job is then to use to pay off the car and the college debt. But I need somewhere to live. So then I put in my money. Hopefully, I can buy a house. Let's say I eventually buy a house. Now I have a mortgage and a car and a thing. And all that has to work without ever breaking down for it to all pay off itself. So you're really just in America, you're getting more money, but you have to dig a hole so deep first that the payoff doesn't come until when you're basically retired, which is like, are you really living if you're just working in a hole? Whereas other countries, if you don't need as much and you're happy, that's to be honest, that's the magic of life is living a life the way you feel you're allowed to.
Even if you're broke. And let's not forget the expats. You ever notice how people love to trash the Philippines
Yes. I don't
until
know
they
why.
retire here?
Exactly.
Suddenly, it's paradise. Suddenly, the same people who warned you it was dangerous are now posting poolside selfies and calling the mangoes divine. Hypocrisy has never tasted so sweet. Now, let me say this slowly for the folks in the back. The Philippines isn't perfect, but no country is. That's the whole
Nobody
point.
is.
What makes this
Literally.
place magical isn't some fantasy of perfection, it's the chaos, the color, the contradictions. It's walking down the street and seeing a Mercedes parked next to a Caraton.
That's so funny.
It's hearing a rooster crow, a child laugh, and a car horn all in the same breath. It's the feeling that anything could happen, and probably will. And before you ask, yes, there are things that will test your patience here. The bureaucracy will age you like a banana left in the sun. The traffic is biblical. The internet sometimes needs a pep talk, but if you can laugh through it, if you can let go of that Western obsession with everything being just so, then the Philippines becomes something else entirely, and it becomes home.
That's true, though. I think that's another. I think this is one of the things Americans take for granted. We have such good infrastructure. As bad as it is, and it could be better, we have such good, like, reliable internet, reliable power, reliable. Like, we really hit the lottery, and I think a lot of people take that for granted. So much so that people hate America, even though they're Americans and they live here, which I would say it's very ungrateful people. But I don't want to get into that. But one of the things that I think that makes the Philippines very unique, and what gets me excited about the Philippines, for example, is the people. Obviously, the people, but people who are proud of their country. I know it sounds crazy because, like, the word nationalism is such a bad thing now, but the reason why I think a strength is because that means that if Filipinos are proud of their country and they take pride and really love their country, that means there's a hope for the future. That, yes, they're developing, but that means they're thinking bigger than just being a power. You know what like a superpower. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's a little bit different. It's not like, so like, it's not about just being a wealthy country or like having a bigger seat at the table. No, it's more about like what can we accomplish together in the future. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's a different type of hope. It's a very special type of hope. When if you look at a lot of the European countries right now, they're letting their countries go to shit. And people are so afraid to be proud of their country. Right? Like, there's people who are like, for example, I don't like to pick on British people. Everybody thinks I hate British people. Again, some of my original followers were British. But look at the you know, look at them. Like, they're getting punished for being proud of their heritage and their country by their own government, right? And so it's like, if I'm looking at that, it's like, wow, okay, they clearly don't care about where they want to be in 20, 50 years. Whereas, like, when I look at something like the Philippines, like, yeah, they actually want to do something. They want to be a part of the conversation in the future. They're not just trying to run themselves into the ground. So that's why a lot of this hate to me just seems so like so short-sighted from the people hating on the Philippines.
Not because it checks every box, not because it wins awards, but because it grabs you by the soul, offers you a San Miguel, and says, relax, pray. You're here now.
Mm.
So the next time someone tells you what the Philippines is like, ask them where they've been. Ask them who they talked to. Ask them what they ate.
Oh,
Because if all they did was watch a YouTube video of a guy complaining about potholes while wearing cargo shorts, maybe don't take
oh,
it too seriously. The truth.
true. There's so many cargo short videos. I don't want to call anybody by name, but as somebody who's like been researching and trying to find videos to react to, man, this is sometimes I'll be feeling like it's funny because the last Filipino video we saw, I felt like I got called out, which, hey, all right, I'll take it. All right, it was fair. It was valid too. It caught me off guard, and it's caught me off guard. But you know, I think some of these guys need to really I'm talking about the guys that be talking shit on the Philippines, right? This, they need to really take a step back and really see how they fit in the bigger picture of the community, because I don't think they realize how they're seen by other creators. So just want to throw that out there.
Truth is, this country is a kaleidoscope. You turn it a little, you see something new.
Mm,
Sometimes it's beautiful, sometimes it's chaotic, sometimes it smells like fish sauce. But it's real. And in a world that's increasingly fake, filtered, and full of franchises, real is rare.
yeah.
So go ahead, believe the lies if you want, or come see for yourself. Just remember to pack sunscreen, an open mind, and a sense of humor. The Philippines will take care of the rest, and if you end up falling in love with the place, don't worry. That's not a bug. That's a feature. Let's talk about Mindanao.
I also want to say this before we move on. I also saw some criticism of Manila being fast paced. And I think, again, I haven't been there, so I wouldn't know. But based on what I've seen and my perception is, yes, it is faster paced than probably some smaller rural areas. But if you compare it to the pace in America, where it's it's the days go by so much faster in America, it's almost weird. Like, and the way I see it is, as long as it's slower than American culture, and like the fact that there's people standing here having a conversation, you could not do that in a big city like Seattle. Everyone's got to get to point A, point B. You don't block the sidewalks. People tell you to get the heck out of the way. Like, it's always go, 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 go. So in my book, as long as you're not so fast of a culture, like if you're slower of a culture than the US, pacing wise, hey, in my book it's great. It's a great deal.
And if you've already flinched at that word, like it's some sort of code for run for your life,
Hmm.
congratulations. You've been successfully brainwashed by the news. See, a lot of foreigners treat Mindanao like it's Mordor.
Hmm.
Don't go there, it's dangerous, they whisper, while sipping overpriced lattes in Makati. Apparently, they think once you step foot in Mindanao, a guy named Abdul's gonna drag you into the jungle, blindfold you with a banana leaf, and demand a ransom via Western Union.
Jesus.
Relax. The only thing you're at risk of in Mindanao is falling in love with the food and gaining 5 pounds in the first 3 days.
I'm gonna do that.
The biggest lie of all? That the entire region is some kind of no-go zone. Like there's a big flaming abandon all hope sign over the welcome arch. Let me clear it up. Yes, there are areas you probably shouldn't go wandering around in, just like you wouldn't take a moonlight stroll through the wrong neighborhood in Detroit wearing a Rolex and whistling show
Yeah.
tunes. But Mindanao, as a whole, is not dangerous. It's misunderstood. Like that one kid in
Mm.
school who was quiet, wore too much black, and turned out to be the nicest dude with the best weed. Davao City is in Mindanao,
Do you think we should? Let me write this
and turned
down.
out to be the nicest dude with the best weed.
I don't know. I'm really bad at
Davao
spelling.
City is in Mindanao.
Do you think we should do? Let's do a video. I'm gonna write this down. A video on Mindanao. I think. To do more research on this, because I think it's really interesting.
Now, you know, the place regularly ranked as one of the safest cities in the country, where people actually stop at
Interesting.
red lights, where you can leave your phone on a table at a cafe and it won't grow legs, where you're more likely to be mugged by a mango vendor trying to overcharge you by 5 pesos than any actual criminal activity. It's got malls, clean streets, strict policies, and a mayor who doesn't mess around. It's the kind of city that makes you wonder if you somehow teleported to an alternate version of the Philippines where everything works and they don't run out of rice. Now,
That happens. I know this is sort of a side note, but does that actually happen? That I feel like, don't y'all grow rice over there too?
now here's the funny thing. Some of the kindest, most generous, most absurdly good-looking people I've ever met live in Mindanao. Maybe it's something in the water.
Hmm.
Or maybe it's because they've had to deal with years of outsiders assuming they live in a war zone. That kind of thing builds character and patience. A lot of patience. Especially when a wide-eyed tourist shows up asking, "So, is it safe here?" for the 9th time that day. And let's talk about tourists. The ones who do make it down there always come back saying the same thing. Why the hell didn't I come here sooner? You've got places like Siargao, which is technically part of Mindanao, where you can surf, chill, and fall for a girl who makes you rethink your entire life plan in about 30 seconds. There's Cagayan de Oro, the whitewater rafting capital. You want to feel alive?
Wait, what? And they were calling it like a war zone if that's the capital of whitewater rafting? How does that make any sense?
Strap into a rubber boat and try not to cry in front of your date. And then there's Lake Cebu. Ever zip-lined over waterfalls while being serenaded by birds and the existential dread of adulthood? That's your spot. Still worried about being kidnapped? All right, let's do the math. Out of the tens of millions of people who live and travel through Mindanao each year, how many get abducted? It's a tiny fraction. You've got a higher chance of getting ghosted by a Tinder date or being charged for extra rice you didn't order. The biggest danger, honestly, is falling in love with the place and realizing your overpriced studio apartment in LA can't even afford you a hut here. And don't even get me started on the food. People talk about Luzon like it's the peak of culinary achievement, but head down south and you're eating seafood that was swimming 5 minutes ago.
That's crazy.
Fresh as your girlfriend's new haircut and twice as wild.
Hmm.
Kinilaw, grilled tuna jaw, crab that's so big it could be a Marvel villain. Mindanao's food scene is a whole vibe. Just bring antacids, because the only thing hotter than the dishes is the girl who served them to you. You know who else lives in Mindanao? Foreigners. Actual human beings who moved there, built lives there, and are not being held hostage by rebels in the jungle.
What? So people shitting on Mindanao, but actual foreigners live there.
I met this one American guy who's been living there for over a decade, married a local, speaks better Bisaya than Tagalog, and says the only time he felt threatened was when he ran out of cold beer during a fiesta. That's about as dangerous as it gets. Warm beer and people trying to get you to do karaoke when you clearly cannot sing. The mainstream media has a lot to answer for. They've painted Mindanao with the kind of brush usually reserved for post-apocalyptic wastelands.
Jesus.
You Google Mindanao, and half the stuff that pops up sounds like a Liam Neeson movie synopsis, but the truth is so much more nuanced and, dare I say, pleasant. It's full of vibrant cultures, different languages, music that slaps harder than your mom when she finds out you dropped out of college, and hospitality so intense it feels like emotional blackmail.
Oh my God.
What really gets me is how people love to warn you about places they've never even been.
Facts.
They read an article from 2003 and suddenly they're regional security experts.
Exactly. That's another thing too. I hate. That's like, yeah. That's why we sometimes for me it's like watching videos from people who live there is the best way to know.
You're going to Mindanao? Isn't that where all the terrorists are? Right. And Canada is all just moose and maple syrup orgies. Come on.
What, dude?
Think. If people only ever went where it was safe, none of us would ever leave our houses. Look, I'm not saying you should fly down there tomorrow and start wandering around in a tank top with a GoPro strapped to your forehead, shouting, "I'm invincible." But if you've got an ounce of curiosity, a love for adventure, and the ability to not act like an idiot, Mindanao will welcome you with open arms. Just don't expect it to spoon feed you a curated tourist experience. It's raw, it's real, and it's not trying to impress anyone. Kind of like your favorite dive bar. The floor's sticky, the lights
Dang, I really want to go now. But I'm not gonna go there first. I'm gonna go to probably the bigger cities like Manila.
are dim, and the
Mania.
regulars might look at you funny. But once you settle in, you never want to leave. The craziest part is that the people living there aren't walking around afraid. They're working, laughing, raising families, dating, breaking up, falling in love again. They're not ducking into bunkers every time a motorbike backfires. They're just living and thriving. Meanwhile, the rest of us are watching bad news from our air-conditioned bubbles, terrified of things that aren't happening to us. So, next time someone tries to convince you that Mindanao is a death trap, ask them where they've been.
True.
If their idea of danger is a lukewarm soy latte, maybe don't take their advice too seriously. Because the real danger? Missing out on a part of the Philippines that's still raw, still beautiful, and still flying under the radar. And if you do go and fall in love and decide to stay, Don't say I didn't warn you. Not about the danger, about the karaoke. They will make you sing. No escape.
I gonna throw this in here. I don't know how much this even matters, but watching him always walk around makes me so hungry because he's always there's so many restaurants. Also, I've never seen a full Adidas store. That's kind of crazy. This shit's huge. That's a huge Adidas store.
Good luck. Let's talk about another doozy of a lie.
I only wear
One
Adidas,
that
by the
somehow
way,
managed
on
to
my feet.
slither its way into online forums, travel blogs, and the dusty corners of your uncle's Facebook page. You've heard it before. You've maybe even said it yourself after watching a 5-minute drone video and deciding you're now a regional expert.
Yeah,
The Philippines is boring.
is
Let
it
that
though?
sink in. Boring, like a Monday morning conference call, like a salad with no dressing, like a Tinder date who talks about their crypto portfolio while chewing with their mouth open. People toss this word around like it's universal. But here's the thing. What you call boring might be someone else's idea of paradise.
It's mine. Like I told y'all from the very beginning, one of the first things I'm gonna do, or that I want to do, this is my ideal vacation. Sit on a beach somewhere, or not even. Like I like just countrysides, anywhere I could just sit. There's not as much noise, out in nature, sit, drink some wine, maybe some alcohol, and just eat and take a nap, wake up, do it again for like 2 days, 2 or 3 days, because I need to decompress. I'm telling you, when you live in America and you're always moving, 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 it's it's like it's like a good way to reset your body and your mind. I need it, at least for me, and it's worked in the past. So
You think hiking to a volcano and bathing in a hot spring is dull?
really, I
Meanwhile,
don't
there's a guy
what.
in Nebraska whose idea of excitement is when the Walmart gets a new flavor of Pop Tarts. So
Mm.
maybe, just maybe, you're the boring one. Look,
Mm.
let's not get it twisted. The Philippines isn't trying to be the Vegas of Southeast Asia. It's not here to dazzle you with neon lights, bottomless brunches, and whatever unholy things are happening on the strip at 2 a.m.
Also, Vegas. I'm gonna be honest. I've been there. At least for the time when I was, what was it, like 10 years ago. I've been to Vegas. Jesus Christ, it's been forever. Yeah, 10 years ago I went to Vegas. Wow, it's really been 10 years. Holy shit. It was a shithole then. I don't know if it is now, but it was a shithole back then.
This country doesn't need to impress you. It's too busy being itself, wild, messy, soulful, charming, and yeah, sometimes frustrating enough to make you question your life choices. But boring? Number. Let's say you like nightlife. You want flashing lights, overpriced cocktails, and DJs who look like they're solving complex equations while pretending to turn knobs. Guess what? Manila's got you.
Which, by the way, I know you guys. I think in one of the first videos I said that we're gonna do that nightlife stuff, like the DJs and stuff like that. I do like nightclubs sometimes. I like EDM, electronic dance music, so we will still do that when I get there. Um, so in my head, it's like I want to do like the sitting on a countryside or on the beach and just drink and eat food to relax. But for the content, I think it would be really cool to kind of review what the nightlife is. Because I don't really understand. Like, it's hard to envision it. So I think it would be a cool little vlog to make on that. Um, I think, and maybe I'll probably vlog both, but I think that's like the way I'm gonna break it down. Let me know if you want me to actually switch it. But yeah,
BGC's got you. Cebu got you and your half buttoned floral shirt. You can party until the sun comes up, then have breakfast with a drag queen, a German backpacker, and a rooster that somehow made its way into the club. Don't ask questions, just go with it. More of a beach bum? Good.
me.
Because this place is practically one giant postcard. Palawan, Boracay, Siargao, Bantayan. It's not just sun and sand, it's soul therapy. You sit on a beach in El Nido watching the sky light up in colors you didn't know existed, and suddenly that Excel sheet you forgot to send last week doesn't feel so important. You eat grilled fish that was alive 5 minutes ago, drink rum that costs less than a cup of coffee back home, and stare into the horizon like some deep philosophical sea creature. You're not bored. You're just realizing you've been living at the wrong speed your whole damn life. But
Yep.
let's say you're a culture junkie. You need history, texture, soul. You want to learn the dances, hear the stories, try the weird snacks, and sit cross legged in a hut with someone's grandma while she laughs at your pronunciation of salamat. The Philippines will give you that. It'll feed your soul and then feed your belly with something unidentifiable but delicious.
Mm.
And when you finally ask what you just ate, they'll tell you with a wink and a giggle. And you'll either be horrified or delighted, sometimes both. Now, I know there are people who say the provinces are boring, too quiet, nothing to do, slow pace. They say this like it's a flaw.
That sounds like paradise to me. I don't know why. I don't know why people hating on that.
But that nothing to do feeling, that's peace. That's stillness. That's sitting outside your house watching the sunset with a cold drink and no
Mm,
notifications. That's your neighbor casually offering you mangoes just because.
that's
That's the
paradise.
local tricycle driver knowing your name, your schedule, and your preferred route, and somehow still being late every time. That's life happening without needing your input. And if you're someone who needs constant stimulation to feel alive, guess what? The Philippines will still surprise you. You'll get stuck in traffic, befriend a stranger, get lost, find a hidden waterfall, nearly die on a habal-habal, get food poisoning, then be invited to someone's birthday party, all in one day. It's not boring, it's just unplanned. This
I'm such a go with the flow person. This is like perfect. What the fuck? Excuse me. What the heck?
country doesn't do itineraries, it does experiences.
Yeah.
Even the small things here are strange and wonderful, like the fact that every store has a karaoke machine, or that people will sing like they're on a global stage at full volume in broad daylight with zero shame and 100% heart. Try calling that boring. Try saying that while a 9-year-old belts out Whitney Houston like it's her last chance at salvation. You want weird? Try riding a jeepney with no seatbelt, no air conditioning, and a religious figurine taped to the dashboard while the driver plays techno remixes of Catholic hymns. Try eating balut at midnight while a group of drunk uncles cheer you on like you're entering a death match. Try brushing your teeth while a gecko watches you from the ceiling with judgment in its eyes. This place is not boring.
No.
This place is performance art. Even the shopping malls here have personality. Where else can you get a haircut, pay your electric bill, go ice skating, and attend a K-pop dance competition all under one roof? You're not
That's crazy. But yeah.
in a mall. You're in an ecosystem, a society, a fever dream wrapped in fluorescent lights and air conditioning. Now I get it. Some people need constant action. They need curated experiences, 5-star resorts, things to do, people to impress.
I think that's a good way to word it. Is I would say these two things that he said: constant action and people to impress. In America, impressing people is very like it's such a weird thing that it has to be. It feels like everybody has to do it at some point. But constant action, it wears you down. Like in America, it feels like yeah, you could get constant action if you want to, but to me, it feels like it just makes everything so much more exhausting. And if anything, makes me not want constant action.
The Philippines isn't always about that. It's about connection, about presence, about being invited to a fiesta you didn't know was happening,
Man,
and
these
a
videos are
barn
making me
guy you
hungry.
can't pronounce,
Everybody walking around
and
with
ending
food.
up slow dancing with a stranger under a tarp while
Ugh.
fireworks go off and no one knows why. Boring isn't the word you're looking for. The word is unfamiliar,
Yeah.
or maybe unfiltered. The Philippines isn't boring. It's just not prepackaged. It's not always Instagrammable. It's not trying to be your next aesthetic adventure. It's trying to show you life. Raw, real, loud, loving, and sometimes absurdly hot in places that shouldn't be hot.
How late are coffee shops? Oh, if you made it this far into the video, how late are coffee shops open till? Um, I actually like drinking coffee at night. For some reason, like it makes me sleepy. Or at least once the caffeine wears off. But I don't drink decaf. I've tried it. It's just it's weird. Well, maybe you're probably gonna say, well, you just haven't had good decaf. That's probably it. But I like getting a good cup of coffee, drinking it, watching a movie, and going to bed.
So the next time someone says this country is boring, Ask them what they did while they were here.
Ooh, that's
And
a
if their answer
nice
includes,
bike.
I stayed in the hotel most of the time, then yeah, maybe the problem wasn't the Philippines. Maybe the problem was that they brought their boredom with them in a carry on.
Yep.
Because the Philippines isn't here to entertain you,
Or the wrong
it's here to change you,
expectations.
whether you like it or not. Let's
Yep.
talk about the third lie, the one that's as stubborn as your drunk uncle arguing politics at Christmas. The lie that the Philippines is a poor country. You hear it all the time.
I hate
Some
that.
guy with a podcast mic and a superiority complex blurts it out like he just discovered oxygen. The Philippines? Oh, yeah, that's a third world country, super poor. He says it with this smug tone, like he's doing you a favor by stating the obvious. But let's press pause on the lazy generalizations and do something radical. Let's think. Not too hard, we don't want to pull anything, but just enough to ask, what does it actually mean to be poor?
Yeah.
Sure, if you take a walk through certain parts of Manila, you'll see poverty. You'll see families living under makeshift roofs, barefoot kids selling snacks on sidewalks, jeepneys held together by duct tape, prayers, and the miracle of momentum. It's visible, it's raw, it's human. But here's the punchline: you can find that exact scene, give
Anywhere.
or take a mango, on every continent.
Yeah.
Swap the tricycles for tents, the sari sari stores for liquor stores, and suddenly you're not in Manila, you're in Los Angeles.
Yeah. This is I think the thing is people need to like when looking at a culture, you got to ask, is money everything? In America, it is. In the Philippines, based on what I've seen, it's not. So to judge it the same is so unfair, and honestly, it's malicious if I think about it. It's just like, you know what I mean? Like it just feels like they're not giving Filipinos a fair chance. Now you could say, well, Gato, you're just biased because you have Filipino friends. Sure, maybe I am. You know what? I don't care. I am biased. But if you're judging every single country on whether money's important there, some people just want to be happy. Like there's nothing wrong with being happy. Money isn't everything. Jesus Christ. I'm making myself mad right now. Anyway,
You want to see poverty? Walk through San Francisco after dark.
it's
You'll trip
horrible.
over 5 tents, 3 used needles, and a guy screaming at a trash can. And this is
Yes.
in what's considered one of the richest countries on earth.
I live in a nice area. Still, I go down not even a block. There's this little park full of homeless people. So it's like technically they might even have more money than people in the Philippines, but they live in like that cuz we can get into the whole argument of like drug addiction all that shit, but all I'm saying is money isn't everything. Money is not a reflection of quality of life.
Richer than cream cheese on a New York bagel.
Chili's. How does that look better than an actual Chili's? That's crazy.
Yet somehow, the sidewalks are still full of people society forgot like last week's leftovers. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, people with way less still manage to smile like they know a secret you don't. They
Exactly.
laugh, they sing, they share food, they invite strangers to parties. Ever been invited to a birthday celebration by a family you just met 5 minutes ago while buying peanuts at a gas station?
I will say this. I love you guys, but if everyone's inviting me to stuff, it's gonna be really hard to go to anyone. So I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings if I say no. Because if everyone's inviting me, like how am I supposed to pick? You know what I mean? If I don't really know anybody.
That's not poverty, that's abundance of soul, of community, of spirit. And yeah, I know that sounds corny, but sometimes the truth is dressed in corn. Deal with it. You know what I don't see in the provinces here? Homeless people. Not in the way you'd expect.
Mm.
I'm talking about the chronic, forgotten, under the freeway kind of home.
So like if you in America, so let's go back here. I'll show you. This is what America homeless is like. You see this little patch of grass right here? Up here? You would have someone sleeping up here trying to hide. And then the security will kick them out every day, but they'll come back and sleep in the grass.
Not in the way you'd expect. I'm talking about the chronic, forgotten, under the
Or in Seattle, the drug use, they don't arrest these people. You would literally be sitting here on your phone chatting with with people, like she'll be sitting right here. There'll be a dude right here doing heroin, just shooting up heroin with and then another one laying on the ground with like half their clothes on, and there'd be kids and shit walking by, but for some reason liberals don't care about that stuff. They don't want to get political, but They they don't nobody cares about it. And yet they're some of the most progressive and like yeah, we I don't want to get into it. I'm making myself mad, but that's what I'm saying. Like it doesn't matter money, doesn't matter your ideology, your political stance or anything. Quality of life is always going to be defined by the people who live the life the way they want to, if that makes sense. Um I hope that makes sense.
The freeway kind of homeless. In most of the provinces I've been to, everyone seems to have some kind of home: a nipa hut, a concrete box, a house with no doors but 20 relatives and one angry rooster, shelter, support, a sense of belonging. In fact, it's hard to even find a person completely alone here. Filipinos are like Wi Fi signals. You can find one everywhere,
Such a weird I don't know. That one's actually interesting. I don't know if I'm going to use that one, but
and they always connect with someone.
mm,
Family is everything.
it's
And
like
even when money's
Bluetooth.
tight, there's usually a cousin, an aunt, a Lola with a spare mat, and some leftover adobo. But we've been conditioned to think of poverty purely in numbers, in GDP,
Yeah.
in income brackets, in cold spreadsheets designed by men who wear suits in tropical weather and still sweat like pigs. But ask yourself, is a man poor because he doesn't own a Tesla, or rich because he wakes up next to people who love him and eats breakfast with his hands while laughing
Mm.
his ass off? Money matters, sure. Bills have to be paid. Rice isn't free. But I've met millionaires with ulcers and empty eyes, and I've met Filipino fishermen who don't own shoes but walk with more purpose than a guy wearing Rolexes on both wrists.
I've met people, right? It's not a flex, but I've met people with three-story houses and elevators, but they're just so alone. They're lonely. They're they don't have anything going on that excites them anymore. So maybe that's where like my point of view is like I've seen people far more successful than me be unhappy, and then I've seen people like successful than me be more happy than me. So yeah, more people who are more successful than me not be happy, and then people less successful than me be happy. So life is always going to be what you make it, not what political ideology, not what money you have. It's always going to be what you want it to be, what you allow yourself to be. And I'm learning this.
Try telling them they're poor. They'll laugh, pour you a shot of Tandway, and tell you a joke that somehow ends with a chicken and a love triangle. So why do people keep insisting the Philippines is poor? Because it's easy. Because
Yeah,
it's simple.
I think
Because
that's what it
nuance
is.
is hard and doesn't fit neatly into an Instagram caption.
And I think it goes back to like people wanting easy views and easy like drama to farm. I think it's just too easy. I think it's because the Filipinos are so nice, it's easy to like shit on the Philippines and get away with it. If that makes sense. Because you guys are so nice, y'all just move on because y'all don't really care. You know they're lying anyway. Whereas like, but because of that, some of these creators will do that. Um, take advantage of that. Whereas like, there's other countries who like you can't really talk shit about them because they'll brigade you. Which I'm not trying to say that's a good thing either. Okay, like I think there's a balance to it, but because Filipinos are so nice and much more welcoming, people feel that they can get away with more when it comes to like shitting on the country.
Because people judge countries by their airports and their malls, not their soul. And the real kicker? If the Philippines is so poor, why is it filled with foreigners who never leave?
Exactly.
Why are retirees living their best lives here, sipping beer at noon, dating women half their age, and writing long Facebook posts about how they finally found peace? You think they'd be doing that in a place that has nothing to offer?
And they're also recruiting very talented people and businesses from other countries, not just the US. So that's something to also think about that like they're bringing outside people in. Like there's a reason for that. I think it's the people, but the Filipinos are what makes this place special, but it's a combination of everything.
They come here thinking they'll do the country a favor by spending their dollars, sorry, pesos.
Hmm.
but end
But
up realizing the country is doing them a favor. It
yeah,
slows them down, grounds
exactly.
them, reminds them of something they forgot between quarterly reports and overpriced therapy sessions. You want luxury? Try watching the sunset from a hammock between two coconut trees while someone brings you fresh buko juice and you don't have a single meeting for the rest of the week. That's wealth, baby. That's the kind of luxury no money can buy. Unless, of course, you count the 30 pesos you paid for that juice. Now, I'm not saying the Philippines doesn't have problems.
Bro, that's a kid. Do you really need a truck like this in the Philippines?
It's got plenty. Traffic that could
Come on,
test the
man.
patience of a monk, bureaucracy that moves slower than a turtle on tranquilizers, and infrastructure that's held together by hope, prayers, and Facebook memes.
Hmm.
But poverty isn't the defining feature here. It's just part of the complex, chaotic, beautifully broken mosaic. You want to see true wealth? Go to a barangay fiesta. Watch a community with barely anything put together a celebration with lechon, karaoke, and enough energy to power a small nation. Watch people dance like rent isn't due and sing like no one's judging. That's not poor, that's poetry. So when someone says, the Philippines is a poor country, smile politely. Then ask them how many Filipinos they've actually talked to.
Exactly.
Ask them if they've ever been invited into a home with no furniture, but more warmth than a five-star hotel. Ask them if they've ever eaten a meal prepared by someone who couldn't afford a fancy kitchen, but cooked like their life depended on it. Because if
Hmm.
they haven't, they don't know what they're talking about. The Philippines isn't poor. It's just not rich in the ways some people measure things. But if you know how to look, if you know what matters, you'll see it's one of the richest places on earth.
It is. But unfortunately, it has one of the worst things to ever walk the planet. These darn scooters.
Look, if you know
I hate these scooters. I did listen to what he was saying. Okay. And I agree. I mean, I ranted almost an hour. So the video was 30 minutes. I ranted probably another 30 minutes. Um, yeah. But anyway, I freaking hate these scooters. I absolutely hate them. I'm just gonna be honest. But I think I've said everything I need to say pretty much throughout this whole video. But to recap, I think too many people take advantage of how nice the Filipino people are, and they feel that they can get away with shitting on them. Again, I haven't been, but I am a little biased because I know Filipinos. Like I have Filipino friends. Um, yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Was I harsh? Did I speak truth? Do I feel like um do I agree too much with Brian? Let me know. And Brian, if you're watching this video, man, appreciate you. Keep them up. These are great videos. We got the next one. Bye bye. This video is brought to you actually by viewers like you. Thank you so much for subscribing and being part of my journey and allowing me to be a part of yours. Let's create new memories this 2025 on our road to 1 million subscribers. And with all that jazz out of the way, I just want to say thank you so much. I love y'all and enjoy the video.